Hello, hello.
Hello.
So welcome in the studio, Brice.
Thank you.
Thanks for showing up.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
For people at home, you're a mastering engineer, audio engineer.
Indeed.
You know everything about acoustics.
I studied quite a lot, yeah.
How do you think about the difference between the idealized listening position and the sort of general experience in the room? Is there a difference between...
Sure, mostly in the low end. Because what happens is, in the low end, the room is really defining how you have modes, so frequencies that are cancelling each other or boosting each other. And so when you will move through the room, this is an experience everyone can do at home, just playing like a 30 hertz sine, and in the length of the studio, move from one point to another, and you will hear, it can be really wild. You can have like 15, 20 dBs of difference in loudness, even more. And so you have to find a proper position where the sound is more even. And this is where geometry is playing a role. There is this average mathematic rule for the 3/5 for the listening position, because modes are multiple of the length, and so every even multiple will have positions in the middle, at the quarter, at the eighth, and so the 3/5 is somehow in between everything. And so you get something where you don't have too many construction and too many destruction modes.
Yeah.
But this is for a square room. I mean, a cubic, because the ceiling here is quite angled, will have different things, but it's a good starting point. It's not an absolute rule, but it's a starting point. Then the middle is usually the worst, because of everything is piling up there. So this is where we have to think about this zone, because now it's really like in the middle. So maybe you have to move it a bit closer or a bit further, or you have to agree that in the middle, the low-end restitution will not be perfect. That's the whole thing about acoustics. It's always constraints and trying to get the best out of physical place that has some constraints. Same goes for equipment. You know, equipment is creating reflections, it's creating all kind of issues. For example, in my mastering studio, I decided to shrink everything down to the tiniest possible desk.
Sure.
For that reason, to have the smallest acoustic imprint. But then you have modular synths, you have things around, and so it's always a compromise. And that's what I think is really fascinating. It's you have the physics, then you have weird things happening in a room because of things you don't really measure, and then there are the constraints of the room, and so the idea is to try to optimize all that for ergonomics, usability, and quality of sound. This kind of triangle, and I know you love triangles.
I love triangles. The whole room is a triangle. So what are we doing today?
The idea will be to improve the acoustics of the room and to improve the listening position and the speaker's position. Of course, we are not building a room from scratch, so we are constrained to the actual size. The first thing is finding the best position for listening. That will be the one where the low end will be the more equal, because high frequency treatment is easy to tackle. I mean, it's easier. Lower frequency are the hardest to tackle. And so the first thing is the physics of the room, the size of the room, and finding the best spot to sit. Once you have that spot, we'll try to find the best position of the speakers. Because you have quite some panels, then we will think of how to put every panel to maximize its efficiency, basically.
As you can probably imagine, I'm quite attached to the ergonomics of this space in terms of, there's not a lot of other ways I want to organize it.
Sure.
In the sense I'm going to be here or here, but not far away from this sort of area, you know? So what are the different steps to this?
So the steps are, first is finding the proper listening position, and this is for the empty room.
Yeah.
Because this is where it's the worst case scenario, right? And the good thing about that is your listening position will not change in height and will not change in width. You are always centered in the width. So the question is just on the vertical axis of the room, where does the sound is the best in the low end? And for that, we're going to just put a speaker in a corner.
Yeah.
Really in a corner. So it's exciting all the modes, and we'll look and we walk through that linear axis to find the best spot.
On the plus side, back in the day, I actually did do that before everything. This is a marker for me to say bad spots, and here there was one that says good spots.
Okay, so you did this already.
I did this is thanks to an advice from Jesco Lohan.
Yeah.
The bass hunter technique, he called it, I think. And yeah, so that I did that in the empty room here, and I did have like bad, good, good, bad, good, bad.
So maybe, and you are sure about that position? Then I would be just curious to measure to see for the total length at which distance we are, just for the sake of the exercise, are we
Please?
somehow at the 3/5? Because it seems kind of.
Yeah. Oh, I'm lucky I did that step.
Roughly 2 to 4. So you are, the chair is more or less,
Yeah, I would say that's correct. Yeah.
so it's like 460. From here, like that. 13.5 divided by 5 times 2, 540. So we are not just there, but, and this makes sense that it's closer because of the angles. Angles are making the room perceptively smaller.
Yeah.
If the walls were straight, it's bigger.
Right.
So the middle, 2.5, 2.45. This is the middle position. Because this is really important for the stereo image. And this is something that people usually overlook in home studios, is having the listening position exactly in the center of the width and the speakers at the exact distance of both walls, because otherwise the reflections are not coming at the same time and you have shifts in the stereo image. This has nothing to do with low-end frequency, but about the quality of the stereo image. Here we go. And it seems like you are not that bad, in fact. Weird is, we would have expected this wooden part to be exactly centered, but it seems to be a little bit off.
Yeah, I experienced that as well.
It might look a bit weird because we'll have to move things just a bit to the right, so it will seem a bit off-centered, but it will be properly centered, in fact. It will be just here. Not a big deal, but will be maybe a bit eye-bothering. Okay, then I suggest we start by measuring this and find the exact spot in the current situation, and I will take out my measurement mic. I suggest you just sit on your chair so I can adjust the height of the mic to your ear height. We are measuring things properly as should be. There is no perfect mic. Every mic has imperfection in the curve, and so actually when using Room EQ Wizard, you should check up for calibration file for the microphone. And so this is balancing the response of the mic. This being said, honestly, this is the least issue for me. Why? Because, and this is maybe an interesting disclaimer, when doing acoustic treatment and thinking about increasing acoustics, people tend to focus on the frequency response and the balance. And actually, this is the least important aspect of it, because our brain reconstructs things. No one has perfect hearing. We have dips at some point, and the brain, by hearing everything through that same filter, compensates. And so having a room even with 10 dB dip in some range is not that problematic. What's problematic is the phase response and the decay of the room. And that's the other thing is, usually when people start to treat their room, they look at the frequency response, then they put things like SonarWorks, and it's helping, but it's only taking the frequency response, not the phase. And the other thing is, we put DIY panels on the walls, and those DIY panels usually stop being active below 200 Hertz. And so you have a top end that is very dry, very concise, but the low end is just all over the place, with long decays and with uneven response where you are in the room. And so you can't trust the low-end response you have, because as soon as you move, the response is changing. And this also being said is not an issue if you know it. And so this is why I always advise people to start doing this walking through the room. In my previous studio, I knew that at my listening position, because this was the room like that, I had a dip of like 7-8 decibels at 40 Hertz. So hearing my kicks at that position wasn't possible. But I knew that if I was leaning 30 centimeters back, I had a nice response. So I was working on the track, but when I wanted to fine-tune my kicks and my basses, I was just doing that, and then I could adjust things, and then coming back. So, and this is why often people think that acoustics is voodoo, or you need to invest a lot, and if you want a perfect response, it is. But you can often manage to get good results by knowing the room, knowing where to place things, and finding compromises, again, that makes it totally usable for a fraction of the price. All right, so I'm gonna do a first sweep.
All right, first diagnosis, doctor, will I ever play the piano again?
So what we see are here at 53 a quite big dip, and at 150. And this is a first really interesting cue.
Okay.
Why? Because 150 is 3 times 50. So this is definitely something that has to do with room geometry.
Interesting.
The other thing, and this is where we're going to see now the phase reaction, and if the phase is switching at the moment you have a dip, then you know that the dip is coming from an acoustic point and not from a filter in your speaker or some non-linearities of the speaker.
Okay.
So we're going to latch the phase, and what do we see? Exactly as expected. This is here. We see this is a phase flip, and here as well.
I don't understand that, sorry.
Okay, what's happening is your speaker is producing a sound wave. Let's take a sine wave for easy projection. What's happening is this cycle is moving through time in a very linear way. Mm-hmm. And we are traveling through space, through time, right? And so the position will always be moving as a circle. This is what we call the phase. And so it's moving in an equate way. What the microphone measures is, through that sweep, is the phase staying consistent. And at some point, it measures that instead of being at this point, now it's down low.
Right.
So the speaker is not shifting the phase. So the thing that is happening at the head of the microphone is that actually the direct sound at that frequency is meeting a reflection. And the reflection is cancelling, is fighting against the direct sound. And so the flip of the phase is an indicator of a fight between your speaker and a wall in the room.
Interesting. So if you would record this, let's say in an abstract space or outside or something, this green line wouldn't be going up and down.
If you would be outside or in an anechoic room, the phase would be totally linear.
This green line would just be flat.
Flat.
Oh, crazy.
If it was just one woofer.
Yeah.
If you have multi-ways, you have filters inside the speaker, and the filters
there's no reflections if it's just direct sound.
And because I said filters are changing the phase as well.
Right.
You know, so if you have crossovers inside the speaker, the crossovers can also induce phase rotations, not specifically total shifts, but rotations.
Yeah.
But in an ideal world, open space or anechoic room, so no reflections, one woofer, no filters, nothing, the phase will be linear through the whole spectrum.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. What we now can do for the exercise, and this will be interesting, is open, for example, Ableton, and this is where the fun comes in play. We're going to use operator to generate frequencies at which we hear problems, we measure problems, and we're going to see how those translate in real world. And I think this is an interesting thing to really understand what happens. And why operator? Because in operator you can change, instead of playing notes, you can go fixed, and then you can choose specific frequencies. Perfect, a bit of longer attack to avoid the click. I could go more precise, but it's not that mandatory. So exactly we are at 53.7, like that. If I play this now, and now we're gonna move from front . Okay, so now you feel from left to right, it's barely changing. Whoa. But from front to back, it's changing a lot.
True. It stays very consistent if you just walk horizontally.
But at this position, you have barely nothing.
Gone. Big. Yeah, here it gets really small. Almost completely gone here. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a first indicator that this mode is in the length.
Yeah.
And that by playing the sound that measured a dip and moving through the length, we see that same problem. So the question is, how can we solve that? Because solving that will also kind of help solving this. For the rest, let's first dive a bit further. You see quite some changes here in the mids. On the top end, I don't pay attention. Why? Because I did a measure with the 2 speakers turned on. And so there are phase issues between the two. If I'm not exactly spot on in the middle, the signal, there will be some really tiny differences in time between left and right. So what we're going to do now is do the same measure, same position. We don't touch anything, but we're going to measure just one speaker and the other. And you will see probably in the top end, the phase will be much cleaner. Mm-hmm. And surprisingly, and this is depending on how exactly we are positioning the speakers, there might be some quite strong differences between the left and the right, surprisingly.
Okay.
Here we compare to both speakers. You see that actually this problem here is kind of same, but it's stronger on one speaker than the other. Here this dip is much stronger on one than the other, and the top end is kind of similar, right?
It's interesting that that dip would be bigger on one speaker than on the other. That doesn't make sense to me.
Depending on tiny geometric differences.
But they're both the same distance to the...
I'm going to tell you something. In my room, everything is like to the millimeter symmetrical.
Sure.
Except one thing, the front wall, the window, it's a sliding window, so there is one that is like that deeper than the other one, and one that is really rigid, the fixed part, and a one that is a bit moving because it's the sliding part. On the right speaker is no problem. The left speaker, that is close to the rigid one, I have a dip at 120 Hertz, like 6 decibels.
Yeah.
Just because of that window.
Yeah.
I put something in front of the window, it's gone.
Yeah.
Sometimes big things have no impact, and sometimes tiny things have a bigger impact. This is the unfortunate acoustic impact of things. Look, see the phase here now? In the top end?
Unfortunate acoustic impact of things. A biography by Brice.
See, that was the measure of both speakers, and you see how messed up this is, right?
Yeah.
Because this was interferences between the two speakers. I take one speaker, this is totally clean. I mean, that are all phase flips, but this is linked to the interference between
Every time
speakers.
there's a line from top to bottom,
Yeah,
that's a
this is
phase flip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, the top end is much cleaner.
Right.
Okay. Usually, when you measure things here with one speaker, it's coming from the desk.
Yeah.
Because it's high in frequency, so it's short in distance.
Yeah.
The longer the distance, the lower the frequency.
Sure.
And so desk reflections are part of the problem.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't do without a desk.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why Bob Katz, which is one of the references in mastering engineers, he works on a couch with just the keyboard on his lap, because there is no desk or just a screen on the floor.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate version of it, but as producers, we need gear around us. This can make some reflection. I mean,
yeah.
But we see this is already much cleaner. If here again, so both speakers in terms of phase in the highs are kind of reacting in a similar way. So this is okay, and so this is an indicator that all the mess we had here was just due to the two speakers. But if you look in the lows, this is where it's interesting. These ones stay the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Another cue that is interesting is watching the spectrogram, and this is a view that many don't know exactly how to read, and it's super important. Basically, this is showing through the frequencies, the brightness is the loudness of the signal, and the length is the decay time. And in fact, this is surprisingly not bad at all. Yes. If you see, I mean,
sublime.
You want to go as even as possible to avoid color. And this is what I said earlier. People pay so much attention to the frequency response, but actually the decay, if you have a decay in some frequency range, the room has a tone. This is giving a tone to the room. Here what we see, for ideal studios, we consider the range between 0.2 and 0.3 seconds as an ideal range. I know I love dry spaces, so my studio I did it at 0.19, and I have something really flat.
But generally we're there.
But generally we're there. We are a bit over in the mid-range, and this is what is audible, in fact, as reverb, this part. When we heard the sweep, I can just do a sweep for the sake of you of hearing. Let's do it. In that range, there we hear the reverb. We don't hear reverb in the lows, we don't hear reverb in the top end, we hear it in that mid part, because it's longer in this range, from 5 to 3, basically. This is the range where we have a bit of longer decay time.
From 500 to 3000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really the mids, huh?
Yeah. What the good thing is, what happens sometimes is that you have this kind of blobs.
Ah, yeah, right.
See, there's a dip, and then again. This is a very strong indicator of a strong mode, because it means that after some time, the sound disappears, there's a cancellation, and then it's coming back.
Right, yeah.
Because of the bouncing back.
Crazy.
And I guess the fact that you have those angled ceilings is playing a role into not having this kind of behaviors. So that's a good thing. Another great thing is that, okay, we are lacking some energy below 30 to be like really totally perfect, but there is no very strong build-up here either. So it's not lingering. My guess would be, here we have an issue about density. We see a big drop, and here as well. So these are two areas that I would first tackle. And this one, this mid part, is something that we could do by adding just a little bit of broadband treatment.
Yeah.
My guess would be adding something here on the ceiling will already help quite a lot on that one. What we can do also to really be precise is, because we now have the measures, it's going for AMROC. It's a room mode calculator.
Right, yeah.
So we said length, we had 30.5 and the Biz.
And 591, I think, no?
What's interesting here is to measure this thing. First is the Schroeder frequency, and Schroeder frequency is an indicator of the room behavior. Basically what it's saying is, above Schroeder, the room can be treated with broadband panels. Below Schroeder, the room acts like a resonator. I know you love resonators. And so it's like if you would blow in a bottle.
Yeah.
You know? And so it doesn't matter at which position the sound is coming from, the room will be excited on all the modes. Okay, so the localization of the source has no impact. And so usually what's happening in terms of treatment is that above Schroeder you can treat with traditional panels being properly placed. Below Schroeder you have to look at the modes and use either membranes, tune traps or active bass traps to tackle those specific frequencies and having specific treatment in specific zones. That's another small disclosure about acoustics, but you have two types of acoustic treatments, pressure-based and velocity-based. And basically what's happening is, where you have high pressure, you have low velocity, and where you have high velocity, you have low pressure. If you have a membrane, the membrane has to move to absorb the energy, and so you have to have pressure. So membranes are pressure-based absorber. Broadband panels with fiberglass, rock wool, cotton wool, whatever, what's happening is the sound is getting through the fibers, and actually the fibers are getting in movement through the sound, right? And so you are transferring sound energy into heat. Of course, it will not be burning, but physically this is what happens.
Depends on what kind of music you make, yeah.
So you need speed to get those fibers to move. So if you put broadband panels at a place where there is no speed, they don't react. Mm-hmm. And this is why also, well, we have to use corner traps because there is a lot of energy in the corners, but usually corners are placed with high pressure but lower velocity. And so somehow broadband panels are a bit less efficient in those positions. But membranes, tune traps are super efficient in those areas. The PSI AVAAs, the active bass traps, are working with pressure. And so this is why the recommendation from PSI are first to place them into corners.
Yeah, so you mentioned the Schroeder frequency, right? And so, yeah, I've often been following Jessica Lohan's kind of thought process, which is when in doubt, porous absorbers and more of them tends to be kind of the simplest way of doing it without getting too specific, right? And one of the things that this room has is that it's way bigger than any room I've ever worked in. And so I think that the room modes that exist, or the problematic frequencies, are so low, indeed, that
they're least problematic.
Less problematic indeed, because typically I might have had real huge problems at like 80 hertz, 100 hertz, 150 hertz, 200 hertz, which is super annoying when you're trying to make bass music, because you're
all the punch, all the
so many important decisions you have to make at those frequencies. But in this room, I feel like, because the room's so big, the problematic frequencies are so low that it's like,
less problematic.
This
being said, if you have a problem at 20, it will be there at 40, at 60, at 80. I mean, at all those multiples. Maybe quieter, maybe not that strong because, again, of your ceiling not being parallel. So this is also something. And to bounce back just on one little detail about Jesco, and he's totally right. Porous absorbent is the easiest way to treat things, and you just have to put more. With one detail, the porosity of the material. It's the flow resistivity. What it means is, if you have a material that is very dense, very thick, if you put a lot of it, at some point the sound wave will hit as a hard wall and will bounce back. And so this is one big mistake of people using DIY panels, saying, if you have a 5 centimeter panel, use rock wool. It's the best one. It's very dense, hard rock wool, and it will be very efficient. But if you put 20 centimeter of that, you're better off taking fiberglass and rock wool, because the density of the rock wool will make the sound bounce back, and you will not use the whole depth of it.
But I do have some questions. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Shoot, man.
So
Let me
let's get naked. Okay, we're taking our clothes off. That part of the interview is happening. Okay.
You have to start somewhere, right?
Sorry?
I don't consent to these work conditions.
Poor William. For the experience of listening to music in this room,
Yeah.
I was thinking that, you have a lot of these kind of random active reflections going around.
Sure.
And so I thought having one of the biggest walls covered with an acoustic curtain like this Hofa one, that I thought that would be a good idea just in general to sort of relax the room in terms of reverb in the mids and highs.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, any curtain, and the thicker, the lower in frequency it will act. Curtains are basically porous absorbents. It's the same. And one thing that is interesting with curtains that people ignore is the amount of folds you have impacts the action. So if you have actually a very long curtain but you don't spread it out, you have more mass and you have more absorbing properties.
Right, yeah. So you could almost think of this as like almost like a broadband porous absorber that goes from top to bottom.
You don't have to think about it. It is. It really is.
Yeah.
One thing you can try out in small spaces is just like cover a few walls with fabric, and you will hear the sound is already drastically different.
Yeah.
But again, it's only mid-high frequencies. Yeah, well, we'll now start to try to fine-tune the position here with several measures. Then we'll move the speakers, measure the exact distance from the walls, find the equilateral triangle that is at the best distance for the room mode interactions, find the exact angle. This is why I have also a rope. It's a silly trick, but
right,
you put a rope at the back of the speaker, you point at the listening position, and then you have the exact angle to tilt it. And once we'll have all that, then there will be reflections on potential improvements for the future, for you if you want to tackle things, and how to achieve that at the most efficient, cost-efficient and time-efficient way. Basically, what I foresee already now is that the room would need, because of the size, it would need some extra broadband treatment to reduce the
mids there that we were talking about.
The high mids, and I guess because of the 50 hertz issue, this would be ideally tackled with tuned membranes. This is something you can try to build yourself, but it's super tricky, and usually I don't recommend, because the trial and error will make the end cost of money and time probably more expensive than just buying some. You are not looking for some mastering grade kind of situation, so it's always, again, it's kind of the triangle. Return
on investment.
Cost, use, and return. For the reflection problems you had in that high mid area that we measured, not 200, but the curtain will, from the 5 to 3, will definitely help.
Yeah,
definitely.
From about 500 hertz to 3000 hertz, where I was having these active reflections.
Yeah. And actually, one cheap way to do that would be, in fact, to spread some curtain on the horizontal plane, for example.
Yeah.
Here, it will already help to dampen some of the reflections.
Right. Yeah.
But then there's the lights and all kind of different issues. But
sure. I guess one question that I have about that's the fact that it's still a bit too alive in the mids, basically, is one thing I could imagine is have some kind of either diffusers or broadband absorption, sort of in between. Yeah, basically panels that are mounted to the wall here. They don't have to be very deep because they're not really trying.
I wouldn't go for diffuser.
You wouldn't go for diffusers?
No. Why? Diffusers are used to avoid flutter echo. So flutter echo is basically the same as you have for modes. Modes are low frequency and flutter is high frequency. And you hear when you clap in your hands, you hear cling.
Yeah.
This is because the sound bounces back. And diffuser helps to spread that energy into space. So instead of bouncing through flat walls, but because first of the angles, you don't have that much of flutter. And actually the parallel walls that you have between the side walls are already pretty covered, either with panels or with furniture. So you don't have that problem. Flutters are used also to create a sense of a bigger space, but this room is already quite big. What flutters barely do is reduce the reverb time. The reverberation time stays the same. You are instead of spreading the energy to some frequency that bounces longer, it's spreading through different directions, but the overall reverberation time stays quite the same.
Yeah.
And this is not what we want. We want, in fact, to reduce that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I were to put something up there, it would be a porous absorber, but because it only has to be active in the mid frequencies and the highs, it doesn't have to be super deep. We're not trying to.
What I would do, for example, the easiest way and the cleanest with the least hustle is squares of polyester wool. They exist in white and in black, 4 or 5 centimeter thick, and you can just glue them to the walls.
Oh wow!
Because of the high frequency, if you want them to be efficient down to 200 hertz, you would need some distance from the wall. But what we want to tackle is that 500 to 3K, so you can have them really like glued to the ceiling. So it's just a bit of glue, poke against the ceiling, and you're done.
Nice, and because they're whites, they won't really take anything away from the visuals of the room. Yeah, nice.
This would be for me the fastest, the easiest, and the most efficient option for that high frequency content.
Because I guess, you know, one of the funny things I find about, of course, in cube rooms, you have parallel walls where sound is bouncing. And in this triangular room, you do still have like a three-way. So there is that aliveness, and that would already cut that down substantially, I guess, right? Yeah.
Sure. And the fact that you have more surfaces with panels will do that. Even if the sound bounces back to a place where there is not, it will at some point bounce again into the panel, right?
Yeah.
Also, one thing we didn't talk about, and it's not that important, but it's still something that exists, so it's nice just to share it. People talk usually only about the directional modes, the length, the width, and the height. But actually there are 2 other types. We have the obliques and the tangential modes. And these are weaker, but they are there. But here again, because of the weird geometry of the room, things are more scattered around. So if you have just a few absorbing panels here and there, that will also reduce this turning around of energy, basically. And then check for the front and the back corners if we have a really like building up of energy in that 50 and 150 hertz area to try to find a way to tackle that. Maybe this is still something because you want to keep some space to put things, but I don't know behind if
there's quite a lot of storage stuff there.
Yeah, you have storage there as well. Okay, so we'll have to think about.
And this is you basically moving the listening position back by like 10 centimeters.
10 centimeters at a time. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think now I'm reaching to the edge. I'm going to do now the last measure at position 7. So what we see about all those points is that the position we had here at 7 was the best for the intermodal positioning.
Yeah.
The overall response was the flattest, but the one we have here on the below 100 hertz is kind of equal. We have only this little dip at 150, so this is the kind of compromise. This would be too close for your students.
Yeah.
So for the room, if it was a mastering studio, I would recommend being here with no one.
Yeah.
But this is a totally valid point. Considered the room and with still pretty decent response. I might try, if we can just for the sake of it, push it still a little bit further and do a last measure, just to see. Probably what we'll notice here in the next one is that we'll have an even better response at that 45 thing, but we might have a stronger boost as well. This is prediction, I don't know, I'm going to measure, but my guts tell me. Tap, 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 and this is 20. Yeah, see? The mic is a bit further than the stand, and so aligning the head of the mic with the floor, this little X is then the ideal listening position, given the room and the constraints of the room. So we're going to leave this here now, and we're going to start playing with the speakers.
Gotcha.
Okay. What matters is having the equilateral triangle, and also a little detail is usually Online, people talk about the triangle, and when placing speakers, it's detailed, but it changes a little bit. People are putting their head at the point of the triangle. Usually what you want is pointing the triangle just behind your head, because the ears are not the point, but are spread across. And so you want that triangle to be like pointing just behind your head, so the ears are exactly into the angle.
Yeah.
It's a detail, but while we're at it, let's talk about details. Without doing treatment, the first impression, maybe you can sit down and play some music and tell me if you already feel a difference, and maybe not, and maybe it's just subjective, but you can listen there. You'll hear fluctuations in the loudness.
Big fluctuation there. Then it goes quiet there for a moment. Indeed, I can hear the 150
And now if you
hertz
go
there.
at the
Correct.
you have the little one,
Yeah, it still goes, and then it arrives at this louder.
but overall the shape is flatter
Yeah.
than what you have.
That's what I experienced. Can I experience it one more time?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So what I would do is, it's the first time I'm doing this in a place where there is already acoustic treatment. Okay, let's just try to do a last measure then with the current situation, and to see how good or how bad did we get. But look
Yeah.
at the decay before
Oh, wow.
and now.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, that's a big difference.
And if you look at the sound pressure level in the lows, we even got rid of the dip, because probably the panels were too deep and reflecting sound, and now they're absorbing, plus the corner taking some of the energy.
No way. Hell yeah. Fuck yeah. Oh, okay. Nice.
It's crazy. You see how just moving things from position, we didn't add anything in the room. We are now below the 300 milliseconds, so we
Yeah.
are below 0.3, so this is kind of studio grade. And in fact, I would be curious, just for the sake of my ears, not to measure but to listen. Yeah, I don't hear the same ringing as before. You remember, as I said,
Yeah.
the high end where I heard more of the room, here it's kind of hidden in between. Here you go, mate.
Dude, thank you.
That's it. Now, as I said, there is still room for improvement with a bit of panels on the ceiling. You can always push things a bit further, but at some point, what's the added benefit for the cost? It's the last percentages are always the one that costs the most, and I'm kind of happy because we improved the room with nothing.
Yeah.
Just moving things
Just
around.
moving things around. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Pleasure. My
Freaking
pleasure.
great. Freaking great. All right. Nice. That's a wrap then. Do you have any favorite reference tracks that you think are good for evaluating a space, like a mixing situation?
I have one favorite reference track, but it's not electronic music.
Yeah.
It's Avishai Cohen, Remembering. It's a beautiful track.